Welcome to the Somos Sunnyside podcast, brought to you by the Communications Department of the Sunnyside Unified School District. Thank you for tuning in while we share stories about the bright side of education.
Hello, everyone. This is Jose Gaston, the proud superintendent of the Sunnyside Unified School District, and this is Somos Sunnyside. That's right, we are Sunnyside, and we have a brand new episode here, and today's topic is Attendance Awareness Month, and we have two special guests today that are here in attendance, right? No pun intended, but it's so important that we speak to how critical it is for our kids to be in school every day. So we're going to share some great information, but before we do that, I want to introduce our guests, and I want to we want to learn a little bit about them. So today's guests are principal from Elvira Elementary, our Elvira Eagles, Mrs. Kelley Brooks. Hi, Miss Brooks. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine. And we have Mrs. Elizabeth Flores, our proud principal from Gallego Primary. Hi, Mrs. Flores.
Hello.
So, it sounds like, I know my voice is probably off a little bit, been battling a little bit of a cold, so there isn't a voiceover here or anything like that. It's just, I'm a little ronco, right? And Miss Flores is coughing up a storm here too, so we got two people that are trying to push through here. But to get to know our guest a little bit more, I love to start sharing stories, right? Because I think it's so important for not only our colleagues, our parents out there, our listeners out there, but more importantly, or equally importantly, our kiddos, right? Our students to hear just our pathway, how we got here, right? You guys know my story. I've said it hundreds of times, so I won't bore you with that. But Miss Brooks, tell us a little bit about your career path. How long have you been in Sunnyside? Why Sunnyside? Where you grew up? Where'd you go to school? And obviously, I'm going to assume you're a happy employee because you're still here and you're doing amazing things, right? You're doing amazing things as the principal and leader of Elvira. So, take us through that pathway of yours.
Definitely. So, I am a native Tucsonan. I was born and raised right here in Tucson. I actually live in the same house that I grew up in, that my grandparents built back in the 50s. So, Tucson is my home and will always be my home. And I got my start in Sunnyside as a first-year teacher at Elvira. I knew I wanted to be here from the get-go, from some experiences I had, in college, both on the Dawn Autumn Nation and just some time here at some of our schools volunteering. And I knew Sunnyside was my place. And so I've been here for 19 years. So I taught at Elvira for 7 years. I grew my leadership skills at Gallego, Mission Manor, and Challenger. So shout out to those schools and helping me create a path to where I am now. So I'm very proud to have landed back home at Elvira, or Elvira, as we like to say. And it's just such a special place to be. My husband's Aunt Marty Seeley, Miss Seeley, she was the home ec teacher for a long time at Apollo Middle School and Chaparral Middle School. And so her path here in Sunnyside also made an impact for me in wanting to be here.
So when you were at Gallego Intermediate, were you in a teaching role? Or
I was the instructional coach.
Okay.
So I was an instructional coach at Gallego Intermediate. Became ABSS at Mission Manor right during COVID. So I was in person for a few months, and then COVID hit, and then from there moved over to Challenger as an assistant principal for a few years. And it's funny because the Elvira leaders have this tradition and history of starting at Elvira, working at Challenger, and then coming back home. So
there's
it was
some
one of
transit
those
patterns
things.
here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is so cool. Great story. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Rincon High School.
Okay. All right.
Proud Ranger.
Okay.
Proud Ranger.
Awesome.
But
so Rincon Ranger.
Yeah.
All right. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Ms. Flores, tell us a little bit about your pathway.
Well, I am a native Tucsonan, first generation Mexican American. So living the American dream, my parents came, seeking. I'm a proud graduate I have my PhD, Pueblo High School, class of '89. Yes, but I'm Sunnyside at heart. I started my career back when I was in 8th grade. I said I wanted to work law enforcement, and so I started when I first graduated from U of A, first person, to graduate from high school and college in my family. And I was a probation officer for 6 years with juvenile court. So, I've been advocating for kids, really. They were big kids, but they were kids since 94. I know I don't look that old, but I'm that old. And I was a safe school probation officer when they used to have probation officers at the schools at Apollo. So that's where I started, I could say, my love for the Sunnyside community, working with the Sunnyside community. My caseload was actually my last years at juvenile court, the Sunnyside community. So I was there that year, met Miss Rico, Tana.
Yeah, Roxana Rico.
And she's like, I need a first grade teacher. I had my baby. And I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. 9 months, the misconception that you only work 9 months. So I started in 2001. This is my 25th year with Sunnyside. I started at Summit View.
You guys are both like getting those coins. Yeah, we're gonna
Yes,
get coin
we
20,
are.
I know.
coin
Last year I was
25.
like,
right.
I started at Summit
Earning
View
those coins.
with her. And when Lawfer started,
Yeah.
I was a fourth grade teacher. So we went.
That's when Lawfer was.
They were 4, 5, 6. So I was at Lawfer for 4th and 5th. I stayed there 2 years. Then I went to Rivera, and then I got, back then, the prevention specialist position, later ABSS. So I was in ABSS for 16 years, and this will be my 3rd year as principal.
Yeah, you guys both came in at the same time
We
as
did.
principals, and I'm just trying to get over the probation officer thing, right? Just because I can't picture like a badge, you carrying a badge, and going
It's
up
funny,
to
I
kids,
told the students.
punking kids and telling them, showing your badge. I'm kidding. I'm
Yeah, and I was
but-
I was
to
telling
imagine.
one of my
Sometimes.
former students, he's in 8th grade, and he's like, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? He chats, right? Pórtate bien. And then he goes, I don't know what I want to do. I said, well, I always knew when I was your age. And so I told him I was a probation officer. He goes, that's why you were so good with kids, including him. I'm like, yes. So a shout out to him. I love him.
Definitely gave you a lot of experience in understanding
Absolutely.
behaviors, right? And so, well, I'm glad you made the transition, because it's the flip side of it, right? In terms of the job, from probation to serving schools and stuff like that. So all our kids need support, no matter if they're in our schools or outside our schools.
Absolutely.
But support is so critical.
They all need an advocate.
That's right. And that's what educators are, advocates for students. All right, so let's transition to our topic for today's episode, and that is Attendance Awareness Month and why attendance is so critical. You guys ready to give up all your secrets about attendance?
Half of them.
Just
Half of
just a few.
Just a few, right? We don't want to give away all the secrets. We want to keep people guessing a little bit. And so, we started with this conversation. It's actually, we've had this conversation for years, right? About attendance. And one of the words you hear out there a lot is chronic absenteeism. And so what does chronic absenteeism mean? It means that you miss about 10%, approximately 10% of the school year. So if you do the math, it's about 2 days a month that children are missing school. And that's considered chronic absence, right? That's a chronic absence or chronic absenteeism. And so, one of the things that we did last year as a district goal is we had an attendance goal, and that was to reduce chronic absenteeism at least by 3%. And we did very well with it. We had a lot of different campaigns going on, a lot of school sites getting very creative on how they can increase attendance. And so we're happy to report that we reduced chronic absenteeism as the Sunnyside Unified School District, over 9%. So that's huge for us. That's a big step in the right direction. And so tell us a little bit about, here's what I want to get into. We have competitions every year about, every month in terms of the schools that have the highest attendance rates, right? And you guys are always there neck and neck. And so the last 3 years, it seems like Elvira's been number one, every month it's like it's not even a surprise anymore. So it's like, okay, Elvira's number one, who's number two. So tell us a little bit about one. Are you that competitive, Ms. Brooks, or what is the secret that Elvira constantly is getting that top, getting that gold medal? And we'll talk a little bit about the medals here in a little bit. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I am very competitive. I'm kind and I'm quietly competitive. But at the end of the day, our community is so strong and focused on being at school as a foundation of the experience of coming to school. I think for us over the last, we've been a school for like close to 65 years now. And it's just been a foundational piece of Elvira to come to school every day. And that's a big part of it. So the traditions and our school culture focused on just showing up, being present, doing your absolute best. And we also have a really strong team that is focused on doing what's best for kids. And so I think that the culture that we have and the community that we have is built on kids and families wanting to come to school. Kids want to come to school every day and families want to send their kids to school. So a large portion of our students that are absent when they really need to be, whether it's for an important appointment, whether it's for an illness. And, we do have those families who we're working with very closely, who struggle to get to school more consistently. But overall, it's that desire to come to school because we work really hard to make it a place where people want to be.
Right, and I think you hit it on the nose. It's that piece of students being engaged, right? It's the piece of students feeling welcomed at school, and I can relate to this because my son Jace is a student in the district, and there's times where he may wake up feeling a little sick, but he wants to be in school, and we have students that do not want to miss school, and we know the research, right? We don't have to go down the lines of what the research says, but it's very simple. If you're in school, your odds of being academically successful and socially successful are much, much better. And so, not to get into the percentages or anything like that, but at Elvira, you're constantly hovering right around 95% attendance, yes. which is pretty darn awesome. And Gallego Primary, we have Miss Flores here as well. They're just slightly below Elvira. You guys are at 94.85 or 94%. I think there was 1 month last year where Gallego did come in first place, and I'm sure Ms. Brooks remembers the date, time, and,
I do.
and where she was when that announcement was made, because she's so competitive, but yes. That's good. And so tell us a little bit about, what are some of the ways that staff encourages kids? How do we encourage families? What I love to see when we started this campaign last year, and you'll see it on our website. So for our listeners, go onto our website. We have a attendance campaign that we call it's named Everyday Counts. And if you look there, you'll see the theme there. Everyday Counts. Todos los días cuentan. It's so important that our kids are at school every day. As you drive through our schools, it's on the marquees. I've seen it at every single school, and I love that we put the percentages of attendance rates for the week on our marquee. Some of the schools say, hey, we reached 90% this week. Let's do better. Goals 94% or goals 95%. And so you see a lot of that. So when it's visible, right? It's people are paying attention to it. So again, going back to some of the successes that are occurring at Gallego, tell us a little bit about how you prioritize that. What's the messaging and what kind of feedback you get back from individuals?
Well, like Kelley said, it's, that culture we're establishing at Gallego, having that sense of belonging for the students who want to be there and not want to miss, whether it's through, the teachers engaging them in their academics, us engaging them in outside activities during lunch in the morning. We have clubs in the morning. So just, and keeping the parents educated or in the know when we do put those percentages. We missed it by 0.01, and the parents are like, So we just get everybody the excitement and involved, and like I said, it's for us it's a little different. I think maybe I'm wrong, but since it is a magnet school, it's not a neighborhood school, so it's pretty awesome that parents are coming from some Vail, Sahuarita, Star Valley, and their kids are, we have the percentages.
And we'll take more, right? So
Yes.
a little recruiting effort there. We will take more. We're never capped. She's giving me the stare here because they do get full, but it's great. I mean, I love that piece that's a great point. I mean, although that a lot of your kids don't get bussed in, you got a lot of open enrollment, a lot of kids that are in district open enrollment as well that commute to your school, and you still have that percentage, right?
Yes.
And so that's huge. That's huge, and it's and I'll say this, I might hurt some feelings out there from other leaders, other schools, but there's some truth to this. I mean, that's the reason you guys perform well as schools, right? That's the reason, when you talk about kids being in school every day, 95th percentile, 94% attendance rates, that's the reason Elvira is an A school, right? That's the reason if you had a letter grade, you would be up there as well, right? But you run K3 and there's no letter grades for K3 schools, but it's a magnet school and your kids are performing at high levels. So to the other schools out there, I know you're working hard and I want you to be super competitive and we want kids to be in school, right? So one of the things that has come from this is healthy competition. So as a district, we have a monthly attendance competition and it's kind of Olympic style where we give a gold medal, we give a silver medal and a bronze medal, but we also give a medal for most improved. And we put that on our social media, on our website, and we deliver it to the schools, right? Because it's so important that people get recognized for their efforts and schools get recognized for their efforts. And so that gets very competitive. And here's what I'm so happy to report in the first couple months of school. And I say couple of months because we're already in mid-September here, so almost a couple months. For the month of August, we had 19 of our 21 schools had over 90% attendance.
Awesome. That's amazing.
And that's amazing. That's huge, right? I mean, over 90% attendance at 19 of our 21 schools. And receiving the gold medal was Elvira, right, at 95%.
Yes, sir.
Gallego got the silver at 94.85%. And Apollo. Yes. So shout out to Apollo and Principal Tavarati over there. 93.81%. That's huge for Apollo. That's huge gains. And so shout out to them. I have also noticed that principals have gotten real creative on just little things to inspire kids to be in school. Like, for example, Rivera has, if they have great attendance, great behavior, it's principal with the lunch. And Mr. Carbajal, spoils the kids and takes them, brings them some special lunch in. And so talk to me a little bit about how do those conversations go with kids? You guys have I call them town halls, but we can, I don't know what, I'm a high school person, so we used to call them town halls, but little assemblies, and how do you promote that on your campuses in terms of how attendance matters, and not only to students, but to parents as well?
Right. So at Elvira, we are constantly kind of saying where we're at. We use the data to kind of really lead the way. We have a lot of incentives that we pull out of our hats each month. Our teachers, and this is back down to the classrooms. So our teachers keep really careful track of daily attendance, and every single moment is celebrated. So when we have students not just with perfect attendance, but classes with perfect attendance, we have a way, we spell out the word Eagles, and each class gets a special something when their whole class is present. We do things down to individual students. So when they have improved attendance, we have those conversations, but we celebrate them on morning announcements. They get little medals. We really do it up to really make sure kids know how much they are loved and appreciated, and especially for making improvements at being at school. And those kids that just are at school every single day, we have special things for them to honor their perfect attendance, from recognizing them at lunchtime, and we have lunch bunch kind of similar to Rivera, but we announce it in front of everyone. The certificates, prizes, we have school-wide incentives. So anytime we meet 95% or better perfect attendance as a whole school, we have a big incentive at the end of the month. So cool. I'm excited to partner with some local eateries this month. Good.
We're going to talk a little bit about that, but we gotta cut to a quick commercial. But don't go away, listeners. We're going to be right back.
Sunnyside students can have it all, learning and growing to graduate college, career, and community ready. Don't believe us? Just watch. At Sunnyside Unified School District, we are preparing our graduates with real-world skills and experiences. Our graduates are leaving Sunnyside to pursue an Ivy League education, becoming collegiate-level athletes, and earning prestigious scholarships such as the Gates Millennium, Dell, and Dorrance.
All right, we are back. So we were talking a little bit about incentives, and Miss Brooks was going over incentives. My first thought, if I was a student, I'd want like a day off for having 95% attendance, right? But we can't do that. We're just joking here. But yeah, there's so many different incentives. There's so many ways to motivate students, and so I want to hear a little bit about Gallego in terms of how you message that, in terms of students, incentives, and let's go from there.
Yeah, and like Elvira, we do the daily, we monitor attendance daily, and sometimes we even catch some, my AVSS, Miss Picasso, she's like, I saw this student get out of the car this morning, because we greet them in the morning when they come in. So we're checking attendance, the teachers are reaching out to parents, we have our office ladies calling, making that personal contact, how can we help them, if everything's okay. So it's more out of concern than, why aren't you here, or punitive, like some parents ask, am I in trouble? It's like, no, we want to make sure everything's okay. And you get a lot of information that way, making those personal phone calls, not just a bright arrow that goes out. And so we celebrate monthly, weekly attendance. We keep tabs on the daily attendance. We spell perfect attendance, and we give they get 2 letters if they're there on Monday and Friday and after a holiday. So that's something to motivate the kids to be there those days that are usually where kids are absent more. Also, we have a gato store where we used to open it up during lunch. Now we open it on Mondays.
Right, you're not selling gatos, right? Or
no.
Like that? Okay.
we have we have a partnership with PAC. No. But so that it motivates, and kids have power over parents. It's if they're like, I want to go to the gato store and get my prize, they're there on time because it's open from 7:30 to 8. So parents are like, okay, and we do brag tags every month. So sometimes the kids didn't get one, they're fine with it, and parents call. It's like, where is their brag tag? They didn't get one for this month. And so we have them checking, and sure enough, it's like, okay. So just getting the parents excited about it also, and, collecting their monthly awards that they get. It's pretty awesome to see them just jumping on that.
Yeah, you said something that just, took my mind here in a different direction, because, when I think about like what causes chronic absenteeism and some of those things, there's a lot of factors, right? But one of the things that schools across this nation dealt with, a few years ago was just the whole pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were doing school from home, doing school virtually, and we had hybrid ways of doing school, and so there was just a lot of changes. And when you talked about kids, our kids, and parents may not agree with me, but I'm going to say it anyway, our kids are really good at convincing their parents about anything, right? They're going to say, oh, I don't have to go to school today. Oh, the assignment's on Google Classroom, and my teacher's not going to be there, so I don't have to be there. I don't have any tests today, and I'm just giving examples of how convincing sometimes our students can be, and so it's so important that I mean, if they didn't have to be at school that day, we wouldn't have school that day, right? We would say, hey, it's a grading day, it's a holiday, but every day counts. Todos los días cuentan, right? And so it's so important that, that we make sure attendance and being in school is a priority. And so we've gotten, education has gotten very convenient. And what I mean by convenient is all the technology tools we have. We do have Google Classrooms. We do a lot of work, on a digital format where kids can, turn in. We are a one-on-one school district where every kid has an electronic device, right? And so, but that doesn't mean you don't have to be in school, right? But it's gotten convenient, and so the pandemic created a lot of that, right? So there's these gaps that we're closing from the pandemic, and so. We're going to continue to harp on this. We're going to continue to push on this. I meet with kids once a month. We call it Superintendent Student Advisory Committee, and this is one of the topics we talk about every year. Being in school, right? Because it matters. And so, do you guys have a story, an attendance story, for example, with a student, right? Something that happened where a student was missing, and you had a conversation, and sometimes, and the reason I bring this up, because when I was a high school principal, we had an attendance policy where high school kids could lose credit if they had so many absences. And then they had to do an appeal, and then they had to meet with an administrator. Not every administrator had a caseload. I had a caseload, and I always took seniors because I wanted to, that's what I was prioritizing seniors at the time, and that's the group I wanted. And being the principal, I got to make that choice. But more importantly, I learned so much from those conversations of meeting with kids when they had to come appeal and we had to share things. I mean, sometimes you need to ask questions and have conversations to figure out what is actually going on in their world, because sometimes there's other things that affect why they're not in school, and so we have to make sure that we're providing the right support for students, whatever that may be. And so share a story with me. Share something that you experience with the student.
So, and this is Ms. Brooks. One of the things that really comes to mind is when we do have those students who are starting to kind of miss school a lot, is just like what Ms. Flores mentioned. We reach out, we make connections with the family, whether that's through the phone, and if we can't get a hold of somebody through the phone, we're coming to the door and we're just trying to have that conversation about, hey, we noticed they're not here and we miss them and we miss you. What are some things you might be in need of right now? One of the things that we really focus on is we have a monthly attendance letter that really helps educate parents when their child has had a certain number of absences and or tardies, and what that can lead to by the end of the year in terms of chronic absenteeism and how days missed and how that impacts literacy, how that impacts achievement across the board in all content areas. And when those letters come back to us, I get those personally, and I have a face-to-face conversation with each and every one of those students before I even talk to the families. And that's because I want them to know that not only does your teacher care about you being here, but I care about you being here. Our monitor cares about you being here. Miss Crystal, every single person knows that you matter. And those conversations go a long way because it also shares the insight that students have that sometimes families are more reluctant to share. And it's not to give family secrets away, but really where students are feeling in terms of missing school and wanting to be at school or not. And we had, there two stories in particular come to mind. We have a set of sisters who are just amazing young ladies. They're wonderful students and, chronically tardy, chronically absent. And every single day they walked through the door last year was a celebration, whether they were late or on time. On time, they got all sorts of great prizes. We celebrated them on morning announcements and at lunch, all the different ways we do. But every single day, our team, especially in the front office, knew. When you see these young ladies, you say, I am so glad you're here today. And it was something we all just prioritized. Yeah. And flipping that narrative of why are you late again to we're glad you're here, you made it, doing high fives, doing hugs, makes all the difference for kids knowing how special and important they are and how wanted they are at school. This week we have a student who's already missed more than half the school year, she's been at school 4 days in a row after trying to make some parent contacts, but really being more communicative and more having built a relationship with her. And every day has been a celebration. And I think that's made such a big impact for her wanting to come to school and really pushing her parents to say, I want to be at school.
Absolutely. And I agree with that.
It's huge.
Celebrating whether they're late, and letting our office staff know, because they get frustrated. It's like, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thank you, parent, for signing them in. And, just letting them know you're here and you're going to learn. And that's what counts. Now, and also educating, like I said, the parents of, if you miss 10 minutes every day, it totals a week. And when you put it in that perspective, give them that perspective, parents are like, oh my gosh. Or checking out early.
Right.
Again, being a magnet, if they call from next door, their child is sick, might as well pick up the one from Gallego Primary because we have to come back all the way. So, those things impact, but it's just talking to the parents. They miss 20 minutes when you do that of math or of, reading, and how that impacts in the long run. It's not just one day.
And those early checkouts, I think, account for a large part of our attendance concerns at our school and district-wide. I think families don't always know that when you check your child out consistently, they are missing a portion of ELA or math or science, and ultimately that impacts their ability to perform at high levels in those areas.
Absolutely.
And so I think us being able to kind of remind families of that and inform them of, it seems like 10 or 15 minutes isn't a big deal, but it truly adds up when it's consistent.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? When we talk about instruction, every minute, every second of instruction counts. And so, we know there's good reasons why they pull children out sometimes. I know there's that. It's hard to get dental appointments. It's hard to get doctor's appointments. And sometimes we have no choice in those. That's when you get scheduled and you got to go. But we just got to try our very best to not make a pattern of those situations. And what struck me earlier about what you said, both of you said, is when a student comes in late, instead of giving the downer approach or a negative comment about, oh, why are you late? It's hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Everything okay? You make the student and the parent feel welcomed, right? I mean, parents and teachers, we all got feelings. We all know we're going to walk away with a feeling, right? And that feeling is going to be a positive one or a negative one. It's that simple. And so we always have to make it a positive one. And sometimes we just got to dig deep a little bit. We got to ask the right questions, and we got to get to the root cause of the patterns, whether they're late. If you have a student that's consistently late, consistently absent, let's find out the root cause. But it's so important. And when it comes to customer service and having welcoming front offices and schools, we talk about this all the time. Parents and students will always remember how they were treated when they walk onto your campus. 100%. And so we just can't have a great first day of school, right, where we roll out the red carpets, or we have all the fun little props of welcoming students. That has to be consistent.
Thanking the parents, because we do a lot for the students, but just taking the time, whether it's through a bright arrow, an email, a call, thanking those parents that, not just calling the ones that, well, your child hasn't been here, but the ones that do have perfect attendance, the ones that are meeting the 95% goal, of thanking the parents for their efforts, especially us K-3, it's their efforts that help.
Right. And I think the other thing is, and I know parents realize this, and I know people that have been successful in their careers and in their lives realize that you are building great skill sets for kids when you tell them how important it is to be at school every day, right? So being in school consistently, consistent attendance, not only enhances academic performance, but it also fosters a sense of responsibility and commitment, right? And it leads to when they're finished with school, they're going to have jobs, and they're going to be, there's going to be an expectation that they have to be at work on time. They got to be at work every day, or in some jobs, if you're not at work, you don't get paid. You're not salary employed, you're an hourly employee. And so it's so important to, for them to establish this skill set. So, as we're moving on here, you guys have shared some great information. I do want to give a shout out to all our schools. Although we have Elvira here, we have Gallego here, and our awesome principals here. There's a lot of good work happening. When I say, although there's only one gold medal, one silver medal, one bronze medal, again, we have 19 of 21 schools with over 90% attendance for the month of August, and one school missed it by 0.50%, and so we could have had 20 of 21 schools with over 90%. Our schools are doing an awesome job, but it takes a village, right? It's just not the schools. I mean, we have to give accolades to our parents. Our parents are doing an awesome job. Our nanas, our tatas that drive our kids to school are doing an awesome job of getting our kids to school every day. So, muchísimas gracias a los padres, a los abuelos, por llevando los niños a la escuela. So it's important that they're here. So anything I've left out, any crazy ideas you guys have this year for attendance incentives? I mean, I heard earlier you talked a little bit about, it's also important that we partner with businesses that want to help with incentives. So this is a shout out to all the businesses that are helping us. Thank you. But the businesses that are not helping us, where are you at, right? We need your help. So talk a little bit about, is there any, let's give them the attention they deserve. What businesses are helping us out here?
So we partner a lot with larger corporations like Panda Express. They have a really simple way to honor students through you just go onto their website, sign up, and they do this for a lot of our schools, where kids get free kids meals when
Orange
they read
chicken.
yes, exactly,
Right.
when they read a certain amount or they're at school a certain amount. And so we combine the reading efforts with attendance efforts. We have partners Peter Piper does a lot to support.
Peter Piper.
For attendance and behaviors and reading.
Yep, they'll give you, they share certificates so kids can go get a free pizza and some
Culver's
game tokens.
has also. Culver's.
What about Texas Roadhouse?
I know some of our schools have brought their attendance up from the 80s to 90s because of the partnership with Texas Roadhouse. So that's one I need to hit up the managers over there.
I want to say Summit View because my son was at Summit View. I mean, he had those. We made several visits there because of his coupons. Not and it's very good food there. But yeah.
I would say this year, last year and this year, the U of A bookstore has also been really incredible. From helping us have Bluey at our sites to sharing free books, partnerships with local organizations like the Friends of the Oro Valley Public Library who share book grants, and we use a lot of those books as incentives for attendance as well. And all the way down to, the Tucson Police Department. Today we were honored to have them join us so we could honor them for the amazing things they do for us. And from the donations they give to the time they give, it's just, they are incredible partners with our schools, not only just to help keep us safe and promote school safety and be present when we need them, but just to be partners in education and show that learning is a priority. And I think those from local to national organizations.
And I know TEP, the city of Tucson, they go do presentations for the kids. So when they go, students are excited to learn, the recycling, the watershed, we constantly have presentations for the different grade levels. So
big time. I will say the Arizona Diamondbacks too this year. So a lot of our Arizona pro sports teams have a lot of different incentives. You just look for it and you find it and you sign up and hopefully you get it, and it's.
And if you don't ask, you never know.
I want the coffee that's going around right
Exactly.
now. I'm like, Chris, why don't we have the coffee? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's awesome. We want to give a shout out and a big thank you to all those corporations that have partnered with us on this important initiative, our attendance initiative, and we'll keep reaching out, but don't be afraid to reach out to us as well. So, to those corporations that haven't partnered with us, hey, we're here waiting with open arms. And our kids love incentives. So, as we wrap up here, I want to thank you both for coming on the show and sharing these great points of view on attendance. Is there anything else you want to add? Any shout outs you guys got? Any to anybody else?
My shout out is to my parents. Thank you for helping us, always be on top for attendance, but I need your help so we can be Elvira this month and every month.
It's getting
come on,
competitive
parents.
in here.
Yes.
I'm gonna post this on our class dojo on Facebook so they can listen to it and
do it.
accept the challenge.
I love it. I think, for Elvira's side, it's really thanking our community, our Barrio Nopal neighborhood, because like you said earlier, Mr. Gaselam, it's our nanas and our tatas and our tias, a lot of people who help support making sure our kids are getting to and from school on time each day, especially when our parents are at work.
That's right.
And so it's that level of family commitment. And I want to give a shout out to my Elvira team. I mean, from our teachers to our support staff, custodians, front office, kitchen. I mean, every single person at our school makes an impact every day, and every single person comes together to support students and families, and I think that's something to be celebrated and recognized, and I just want them to know how much I appreciate their efforts, because it's not a solo gig. This happens in community. So
yes, and I'm very proud also. I like you said, a shout out to the staff, to everybody that's involved in the school, from even our custodian who makes sure that we have a speaker out there receiving the students singing, dancing into the school, but also, just everybody. And our teachers are amazing. Their attendance is pretty amazing. They're there, the kids are there. Our staff, we're spelling perfect attendance, and we're like 3 letters away already from staff-wide,
awesome.
And we don't get the 2 letters per Monday and
I
Friday.
love that.
But I think that has a lot to do with teachers are here, students are here.
So there's goals for staff attendance.
Absolutely, and they're amazing, and I thank them for that, because it all impacts everything we do every day, every minute impacts our school. So
right, there's a saying, right? It's a mirror, not a message.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's so important that we model for our students the importance of being in school, right? And so and that's everyone, not just teachers. That means counselors being available. That means administrators being available. Support staff. I mean, everyone matters, right? Everybody has the ability to impact the student experience, and so let's continue on that trend, and let's just build a brighter future for our students, right? And in order to do that, we have to make school attendance a priority. As our slogan says, every day counts, todos los días cuentan, and so let's continue that trend. Parents, if you need anything from us, reach out to us. Your kids matter to us, and we want them to have a beautiful experience here in Sunnyside. And we're well aware that you have choices, and we thank you for choosing Sunnyside. And so that wraps up this episode of Somos Sunnyside. Hasta la próxima.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it entertaining. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and share our podcast with la comunidad. For updates on future episodes and more, be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website at susd12.org. We appreciate your support and can't wait to have you back for the next episode. Hasta la próxima vez en Somos Sunnyside.